Most of the mission-critical applications which run the business processes will be housed in the data center, but accessed by people working in the office. Typically, the office will be connected to the data center by a dedicated point-to-point link, which is high-speed, secure, and reliable. This is usually called a leased line and comes in bandwidth units of megabits per second or gigabits per second. The faster speed links are required if there is a lot of data to move around. For example, if you're storing very large video files. Typically, a leased line will be 10 megabits per second, 100 megabits per second, or 1 gigabit per second. In extreme cases, a 10 gigabit per second link will be required. In some cases, a company will have multiple offices, all interconnected to each other. This point-to-multipoint network is usually achieved via an MPLS network, which is basically a private cloud network sold by all the large carriers such as BT and Virgin Media. Unlike the internet where everyone can talk to everyone, an MPLS network is private to the user. Other users have to be invited onto the MPLS network, which makes it more secure. Connecting the data center to this network therefore means that the data center must buy an MPLS connection from the same carrier. Although it is possible to get a connection to any carrier's MPLS network, it is advantageous if the carrier has a presence in the data center, as this makes connection quicker and cheaper. Much of the equipment in the data center will be connected to the internet. This offers a second route to connect to the office and also allows home workers and mobile workers to connect to the data center. However, the internet is probably most important because it allows the general public to access the company's IT in the data center. The most common example of this is to view the company's website. There are two types of connection to the internet. Standard internet access, which is exactly the same as the internet connection you have at home. This is sold by an internet service provider, who will also give you some IP addresses. It is sold in units of megabits per second, with 10 megabits being the usual minimum. IP transit, which is what the ISPs use to connect to each other. A company using IP transit will have its own autonomous system number and its own range of IP addresses. In effect, it will be an ISP. Larger companies use IP transit because it makes them part of the internet with control over their part of the network, rather than being given access via an ISP who will control everything. Some mission-critical applications are backed up in a second data center so that if the primary data center has an outage, the application can run in the backup data center or stored data can be recovered from the second data center. The two data centers need to talk to each other so that the applications are in sync and using up-to-date data. This requires the data centers to be interconnected, which is usually done via leased lines. With two data centers, one objection that often comes up is that the data centers must be close enough for synchronous replication. What does this mean? If a data center is backing up data to a second data center, it is sometimes important that the two data sets are exactly synchronized. To achieve this, the first data center sends some data to be backed up, waits to see an acknowledgement from the backup data center before sending any more data. Because this wait and see process causes delay while the bits of data transmit along the lease lines, there is sometimes a distance limitation of 100 fiber kilometers between the two sites. This limitation arose because EMC, who make the industry-leading storage equipment, imposed this number. Most other manufacturers do not have the same limit, and in any case, only 10% of applications actually use synchronous replication. Nonetheless, a lot of CIOs will initially say that backup data center must be less than 100 kilometers away.